Hi guys, it's nice to see you again. I hope it's nice to see me. I hope you're all doing well, and thank you so much for coming back to my channel. It's been a little while off, but I wanted to kind of sit back and rethink about what I wanted to do over October. So this is kind of a half video, half introduction, and the introduction is to Spooktober. So if you don't know what that means, and if you're not used to kind of spooky channels, then this is going to be 31 days of October. It's going to be heavily concentrated on hauntings, it's going to be concentrated on psychic things, and it's going to be a lot of ghost stories, Welsh history, castles, and we're going to tie it up a lot with explorations, even though I can't go into places because obviously I don't need to explain COVID to you. But we are going to try our best to kind of get as much as we can in the mix. Now the reason I wanted to do this is because I'm a huge fan of Hayley Reese, and I noticed that Hayley Reese's subscribers kind of all followed her around the time she was making the 31 days of October. I want to make this a kind of spooky channel as well as a bit of everything else, but I really want to get known as kind of doing these spooky videos. You don't see much of people in the UK doing spooky stuff. It's mostly people in America, and they all kind of visit the same places. So I've seen a lot of like the Queen Mary and Stanley Hotel, but you don't really see that many over here. Yet there's so many places that we can go, and there's so many places that aren't actually covered in the videos that we see because they're in Wales or they're in the UK. Now I am going to focus heavily on Wales because that's where I am, and I think there's a lot of stories to tell. If you're not familiar with Welsh history, we have a lot of mythology and kind of tales. We call them the Mabinogion, so they all go back to kind of olden times, and there's a lot of creepy stuff that happens around here. So we're going to dive in today with, it's kind of like a snippet of what I'm going to be doing on the channel and what I'm going to be covering, but this is like a bite-sized video that hopefully you guys will enjoy. So I'm going to go and dive into the history of Castell Coch. Now that's going to be my first video. If you don't know what the Castell Coch means, that's Red Castle. It's directly translated from Welsh to Red Castle in English. Now it was built in 1081 by the Normans, so it was just after the Battle of Hastings. As you can imagine, there was a lot of death around this castle. So there were a lot of battles fought on the ground, so a lot of blood was spilt there, and obviously that left a lot of souls kind of in the grounds of the castle. It was abandoned then until 1848, where Lord Bute inherited it. So he inherited this, and it was left with a kind of bit of castle after all those years it deteriorated. So when he saw it at first, he kind of thought, I want to build on this, and he had a friend called William Burgess. Now he was a famous architect, and he decided to give all of the rights over to him. So he said, I want you to do whatever you want with this castle, whatever you think is right. You've done things for me before, so I trust you to go ahead and do this for me. Now he wanted to make it a kind of fabulous vision of, you know, fairy tale and all this type of thing. He just wanted it to look really pretty, and from what William Burgess got from that, he wanted to make it into like a 19th century Gothic castle. He ended up with a very majestic, romantic and kind of grand building. Now I'm going to put some photos in here for you to see what it looks like. Now as you can see from the pictures, it's a very romantic looking, picturesque castle. A lot of people do think that they've seen this castle before, but most of the time it turns out that it's just from fairy tales, because it's got like the kind of towers on top, and they do resemble the kind of films that we watch. You know, Disney films, that's how it was designed to look. So it does strike a familiar place in our hearts that we all know. But behind its beautiful exterior, there's obviously a lot of dark stories, and that's how we're left with all the hauntings, ghosts, and the spooky stuff that happens in the castle. Now the castle actually has a torture chamber, so it's like a big contradiction in this castle. It's got such a beautiful exterior and it looks so pretty and it's so pleasing to the eye, but when you actually look into its past, it's got such a horrible kind of background to it. It's got such a deathly background to it. A lot of people say when they go there that it's hard to comprehend that it looks so pretty from the outside, but then when you go inside and you realise like all the battles they went through and the fact that survival was kind of everything to the people who lived there back in the day, it makes it all hard to kind of take in that you're in that kind of atmosphere. Now let's get to the part that you're all waiting for. So there are 3 main ghosts that haunt this castle. I'm going to start off with the ghost of Dame Griffiths. So Dame Griffiths lived there with her son, and one day she just happened to go into the garden with him and turn her head for a matter of seconds, and unfortunately when she turned back, her son had drowned in the water, and it was a bottomless pit of water, and she kind of went in as far as she could go to try and get him out, but she couldn't find him. So eventually they called a lot of people back over to the area to see if they could get the son out, but his body was never discovered. No matter how deep they dove into the water, they couldn't actually find the body. And apparently Dame Griffiths then died of a broken heart shortly after, because she never got to hold her son again. Now when people come to the castle, if they have a small boy with them, there is rumour that people have seen Dame Griffiths. Now Dame Griffiths is mostly known as the woman in white, because whenever people see her in the castle grounds, she's always in a draped white dress. Her ghost is said to be still looking for her son, which is really sad, and it makes sense that she's looking at all the young boys that go there. And a lady back in 2014 actually claimed that when she was walking with her son through there, she saw a woman in white just staring at him, and she said it made her feel uncomfortable, but she kind of passed it off. And then the lady kept popping up in different areas of the walk that was around the area, and she shortly realised after that it wasn't a human that was watching her. Just gives me the chills. Now, remember earlier when I mentioned Lord Bute? So Lady Bute lived there with her husband, and unfortunately Lord Bute died and left her there in the castle on her own. It was said that Lady Bute was left scared for her life because of the hauntings that the White Lady or Dame Griffiths caused, and they ended up driving her away, and she had to actually leave the castle because she was so scared to be in there. Now what's a castle without treasure? You've got to have treasure in a castle, otherwise it doesn't count, does it? So that's when the Castell Coch Cavalier comes in. Now he was said to have left treasure behind before he went to fight in the war, and it's said that he hid it in the dungeons of the castle. He then went off to fight in the Civil War and unfortunately did not make it back. However, his treasure still lays in the castle grounds. But when Lord Bute was there, a family had actually hired the castle to stay in for a while, and the lady who was living there had her servants look after her. Now the servants actually came forward with a load of stories from when they were staying at the castle. One of them actually said that when he was lying in his bed at night, he heard a kind of commotion in the background, and he woke up and he looked at the foot of his bed, and at the foot of his bed the Cavalier was actually stood there looking at him, and he didn't say anything, but the guy actually was able to get up and run away, and he could still see the Cavalier when he walked out of the door. So he was very confident in his own castle, I suppose. But it's said that the Cavalier is actually still searching for his treasure. So between him and the White Lady, I mean, you've got these people searching this castle all the time. Would you feel safe in that castle? Because I don't think I would. Now this is the biggest kind of myth that's left with Castell Coch. So most of you will have heard of Ifor Bach if you live in Wales. If you don't, then you wouldn't have. But Ifor Bach was basically a Welsh noble, okay? Once he owned the castle. And legend says that he used to do witchcraft. So it basically says that one day he decided to take 2 of his men and freeze them as stone eagles and put them as guards to the castle, because he had hundreds and thousands of pounds of treasure in there, in the dungeon grounds, along with the Cavaliers. So whoever finds that castle, they've got a good, good fortune coming to them. It's said that one day 2 thieves actually broke in. Now, Ivar Bach was in bed, he was asleep, and apparently the 2 stone eagles came to life and attacked the 2 thieves before they were even able to get into the castle. Now, these stone eagles actually killed the 2 thieves, and obviously this is a myth, so we don't know how true that is, but the stone eagles are actually still there. So it's said that if anything was to happen to Wales as a country, the stone eagles would come to life and they would actually end up killing anyone that came in our path. So guys, that's Castell Coch. I hope you kind of enjoyed this little introduction video, because this is basically what I'm going to be going over when I talk to you guys. Like I said, there's going to be a lot of different things going on. It's going to be a pick and mix for you guys, and I think I'm going to explore so many paths. It's hard for me to explain right now what I'm going to explore, but I think you're all going to enjoy it. Nobody ever found the Cavalier's treasure. Nobody found Ivar Bach's treasure, and unfortunately that woman's son has never been found. So whoever finds those things in that castle, I wouldn't say they're lucky. Unless they found the money, then they're definitely lucky. But if they find the son, then they're definitely not, because nobody wants to find a load of bones. But I wonder if anyone will find the son, and I wonder if anyone will find the money. I mean, if you find the money, can't go wrong, can you? Guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope you've really enjoyed this video, and I hope you come back for my 31 days of Spooktober. Thank you for tuning in. I hope to see you next time, and remember guys, never let anyone dull your sparkle.
It's not for me to say